Okay guys, in this second video, I want to just continue where we left off, and I want to build a bomb, or actually I should call it a cannonball. But I also want to just quickly talk about why I didn't want camera as a child of Unity Boy. That was kind of the end of the last video. I forgot to give the reason. And there are lots of reasons not to have camera as a child of a main game object. In many situations it's fine, but in Unity Dude, for example, when Unity Dude dies, I don't want the main camera to die. And if you set this guy to inactive, all of its children become inactive or destroyed or whatever. Two, the main camera is going to be used for lots of different purposes. And although you can do reparenting in code, it just ends up being a little bit cleaner and easier for me to code the main camera this way. And so as the camera needs to change its job, we will add more code here to tell the camera to do other things like help us aim the cannon or follow a cannonball or watch an explosion or the many other things that the camera has to do in this game. This game in many ways is all about learning how to manipulate a camera. So anyways, moving on, let's make a bomb. And you know, because we have our camera right here, let's make our bomb right next to Unity Dude. So here we go, create a sphere. And let's put it right next to Unity Dude, but kind of slide it over a little bit. So yeah. And let's call this thing the cannonball. And eventually we'll make a prefab once we have everything we want done for the cannonball. But the first thing is that we need to give this thing a texture so that it kind of looks cool. And the texture package that I'm going to use, so in this series of videos, I'm going to use the asset store quite a lot because I want to show you guys how to go get real stuff off the internet. And the asset store has all kinds of things. And right here, I'm going to look for concrete. I'm going to use concrete in a variety of ways in this set of videos. And I want the price to be free. And I want just textures, which I could have gotten, by the way, by minimizing it here. They can just give me textures. If you look for concrete textures and you sort by price, you find this little package of textures, which is totally fine. And there's one that looks a little bit like a cannonball. Looks good to me. I've already downloaded this, but I'm going to hit import. And we can import them all. We could, but I'm going to recommend that we minimize how many textures and materials we bring into the game. So let's just import the ones that we need. Right, so as it happens, the ones that I want to use are 7 and 11. So pattern 7 and pattern 11. Yeah. Why am I minimizing what I import? Well, one, you know, let's minimize the kind of work the computer has to do, but two, let's make sure that our project size isn't huge so we can actually upload it to Desire to Learn. So here you go, concrete texture pack has been imported. And you can kind of look, that pattern will be used later. This pattern is what I'm going to use for the cannonball itself. I'm going to go ahead and drag that on to the cannonball. I like it to be a bit black, you know. So by clicking here, I can kind of shift its color, make it a little bit darker. That looks good to me. So that is a cannonball. Yes, it's huge. I like that. That's hilarious to me that if you were to take a look at Unity Boy, that frackin' cannonball is seriously huge. All right. Great. Cannonball, done. Except for the fact that it has nothing to help it do its work. Next up comes a rigid body. And if I hit play now, the cannonball should fall to the ground. Not too much. Not super exciting. We're going to need to add some logic to it, and we want it to explode when it hits the ground. I'm going to move it up a little bit so it's a little bit more dramatic when I hit play. Boom. Explosion. Explosion needs to happen. Okay, Let's add a script called the CannonBall controller. CannonBall controller. Make sure it's attached to the CannonBall. And let's remember this, that I want to keep everything I build inside of my assets. So I'm going to put CannonBall controller inside of my assets. And, you know, I'm going to put Unity Dude inside my assets too. I didn't really build him, but I'm starting to customize him a little bit. I just kind of want my folder for all my stuff. I mean, one of the customizations I made to Unity Dude, by the way, is I have a player controller on him. All right, CannonBall controller, here we go. What is the job of the CannonBall controller? Well, its first and most important job is to create an explosion when it hits the ground. Simple enough. We have to import the package that has explosions. It is under particle systems. Explosions have smoke and fire and things like that, which are built with what we call particle systems. Again, I'm going to hit none here, and I'm just going to grab what I need. Under particle systems, I am going to want the explosion prefab. But here's the deal. The explosion prefab has some dependencies. If I just click explosion prefab, it actually doesn't click the other important dependencies like explosive physics, force, explosion, fire, and debris, all that crap. So I'm going to go ahead and grab, I don't know, the entire particle systems input. And yeah, kind of a pain. I wish there was a cleaner way to really keep this minimized. But anyways, you know, one of the problems with importing all this crap is it usually has like obsolete function calls. All right, get over it. Move on with your life. Where were we? We have an explosion. It's deep inside of standard assets, but we want the CannonBall controller to spawn the explosion upon colliding in something. So it needs to have an explosion prefab. And that's a public game object. If I do that here and I look at my CannonBall, it now has a place to drag and drop that. That is deep inside of standard assets, deep inside of particle systems. There is a prefab called explosion. I'm going to again drag this out of this folder and put it in my assets. And I'm not claiming I made the explosion. I didn't. But what I'm going to be doing is working with it quite a bit, so I just want it in my folder. This is the crap that I'm using. All right, fine. Back to this, I need to drag explosion to the explosion prefab. And now I can add some code. It's pretty simple. On collision enter, which I can never spell right, but we can pull it up here on the web. Get the method signature. On collision enter, don't do any of this crap that's in the web example, but instead spawn my explosion. Instantiate the explosion prefab. Where? Well, right where I am. And what rotation? Well, you can use my rotation. It doesn't really matter. It's an explosion. All right, so the other thing I want to do, we're going to use this method a lot, is I want to destroy myself. So when the cannonball hits the ground, it destroys itself. The local game object is always called game object with a lowercase g. Since this script is attached to the cannonball, it destroys the cannonball. It basically does a quick swap. Bring in the explosion, get rid of the cannonball. Here we go. There's an explosion. You might notice there's no sound. We need some sound. We need some sound. Let's go do that real quick. Back to the asset store. I'm going to maximize this window again. And I'm going to say search through sounds, audio, sound effects, explosion. Free, please. And this sound package is pretty good. I'm going to click on it. Hit import. And it's got a variety of explosive sounds. I'm going to select none and then just bring in my explosion sounds. This is an explosion. 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 Here we go. There's 6 different sounds here. I'm going to hit import. I'm going to minimize this huge window. Go back to my scene. Here's my cannonball. And here's my explosion. My explosion gets created when the cannon hits the ground. When that happens, I would like for it to make that sound. So I'm going to go to audio. I'm going to create an audio source. Play on awake. As soon as the explosion creates, I want that explosion sound. I'm going to click audio clip here. And we've got a few different ones to choose from. I forget which one I want. I'll go with 1. I'll let you guys play around with this to get what sounds nice. But I was satisfied with that. So as soon as I hit the ground, I got a nice explosive sound and an explosive effect. I think that's it for the cannonball video.